This is Robert Wilke. He's a colonel in the U.S. Air Force Reserves, former secretary of the VA, now at the Heritage Foundation. Mr. Wilke, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you, Mark. And I would say more importantly about my background, I was Undersecretary of Defense for General Mattis before I went over to VA. And it was from that perch that I participated in planning and operational consideration.
That if we have, and I don't know, they throw out this number 10,000 Americans, and I don't even know if they know or anyone knows. Or let's say go 10,000. And there's this arbitrary deadline of August 31st. Are we at the whim of the good graces of the Taliban to get these Americans to the airport? And if so, what's the end? Will they kill the Americans? Are we at risk of thousands of Americans dying? Please talk me off that ledge.
Sure. Well, it's the only time in my life I've ever agreed with Adam Schiff. I don't think it is physically possible to meet this artificial deadline that President Biden set so he could then turn around and give a political speech on September 11th. Hailing himself as the great peacemaker. I want to take a step back in your comments. I've heard a lot of discussion about a repeat of Saigon in 1975, and I certainly, as a youngster, was aware of that. My father had served multiple tours in Vietnam, and by the time Saigon fell, he was a senior officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. I think the more pressing analogy is to Jimmy Carter in Tehran, where our people were left in the middle of a revolution and America was held hostage for well over a year. It destroyed the Carter presidency, and of course it ended up giving us Ronald Reagan. But we are at the mercy of the Taliban. I don't believe, because as you said, we have an accounting of the thousands of Americans who are left in Afghanistan, that it is logistically possible, nor do I see any evidence that the Taliban have opened the gates for these thousands of Americans to move? Because what you're also seeing is contradictory statements coming from this administration that you need to get to the airport, but don't come to the airport because it's too dangerous. So logistically, it's a nightmare. Do we put our foot down with overwhelming force and say there will be consequences if we are not allowed to get our people out? Yes, we should. Do I think this administration will do it? No, I don't. And that's where we come to the great threat to Americans, is that because of this deadline, they could be held hostage by the Taliban in numbers that are, exponentially greater than the 50 or so Americans who were held in the embassy in Tehran in 1979 and 1980.
Unbelievable. This is the setup to something absolutely horrific. So the Taliban, can you get me a little insight into the Taliban's motives here and what leverage we may have over them? If not, we're going to drop a bomb on you, which it doesn't look like that's something that Biden would want to do. And is the only leverage, you're not going to be welcome in the international community? Because China is sure going to welcome them. So what do we have over them that would have them not do what they say they want to do, and that is kill great Satan?
Yeah, I shouldn't have laughed, but that's what we are left to with this administration, and that is telling the Taliban you're not going to be welcome in New York City to go to the General Assembly. But remember, this is the same crowd who 5 or 6 years ago, when Paris was hit by Islamic terror, responded by sending James Taylor over to the French Foreign Ministry to sing "You've Got a Friend." And that's what they were reduced to. In terms of our response, it has to be clear. We can put a massive footprint in the airport and tell the Taliban that we can move out. Right now, what we're not seeing in the press is that they're fighting their own people right now. There are various counterinsurgencies going on. And because the country is bankrupt, the one advantage that we have is that we can tell them, although I don't know that this administration will, that they're going to be cut off from world finance. The one thing that we have over the Chinese is that they're their promises of financial sustenance don't usually bear fruit. And the Russians are certainly not capable of it, nor are the Iranians. So the regime would automatically be bankrupt if the president and his team decide, and I don't think they will, to use that lever. Other than that, without any intelligence on the ground, having given up one of the most secure airfields on the planet, we are in a dire situation. And I've written that I don't believe in our history that we've ever been this low in terms of international stature, in terms of understanding the place of the United States, not only within its own history, but its own place on the planet. And unlike my childhood, when the Soviet Union loomed large over my father and his comrades in arms, the Soviet Union was a one-dimensional threat. It was a brutish regime. The only thing it could offer was kinetic force. We have a much more sinister set of adversaries today than we did then. China seeks to replace us as the center of the universe, restore the Middle Kingdom. The Iranians and the Russians will do everything they can to help kill Americans wherever they are. And we have forgotten in the last few years that Islamic terror is still out there. And last thing I will say on this front, Donald Trump was called the great disruptor of the Western alliance when all he did was ask the same things that my former bosses, Condoleezza Rice and Robert Gates, did, ask the Europeans to spend more on defense. The notion that a president of the United States would be held in the contempt of the House of Commons in London by our most powerful ally is unheard of in our history. I mean, not even George Washington was condemned in the House of Commons when he was leading a revolution. And that the Chancellor of Germany has said that this president has threatened the very fabric of the Western alliance and Western civilization. That is incredibly dire because we have 3.5 years left of this. So it's much broader than Afghanistan. It plays in Taiwan, it plays in London, it plays in Paris, it plays throughout the Pacific.
Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.